I'm Sergeant speaking with Earthwalker Primitive. Got myself a pine tree here today. We're going to go over, I want to talk to you a little bit about pine resin, pine sap. If you have pine trees in your area, you definitely have one valuable resource. The pine sap that comes out of the pine tree can be used for many different things, from glue, sealing cuts, making resin, any number of things it can be used for. What the pine sap or pine resin is in a tree, it's almost like the blood of the tree. Whenever the tree has a cut, a break, or any kind of damage to it, that pine sap is going to come out and seal up that hole, much like the blood of the human body. Finding pine sap on a tree, the way you're going to find it is, you can see if there's any old cuts, you'll see pustules, you'll see pockets build up where damage occurred to the tree long ago, whether it was from a bug, a bird, or just a break in a storm, and it kind of swelled up and hardened over. So you'll find big lumps of pine sap. Or you see where like these branches were cut off or knocked off this tree, there's some pine sap oozing out of this. And over here some larger ones where the pine sap has been oozing out of this tree, and you're just going to collect that up. As you can see here, I'm collecting it up and just placing it in a tin here to process it. Now, there are certain things you can use this pine sap straight out of the tree for, and we'll go over that in the future, but number one thing you want to try to do, if you have the availability, is to process this into clean, pure pine resin. And it's just going to give you a whole plethora of uses, of tools, and things that you can do with this. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and collect up as much of this pine resin from this tree as we can, and then we're going to go ahead and purify this later so we can make it into pure pine sap. Stick with us and we'll get to work on that. Okay, as you see here, I just went around this tree and I just gathered up as much of this pine resin as I could. Now, I didn't cut into the tree, I just took the resin that was coming out of previous wounds and breaks on this tree. But there are ways you can tap a tree to gain more, and definitely a lot more than what I've gained here. We'll go over that in a future video. I'm not going to do it with these trees here because it can permanently damage a tree. I just want to show you that just by walking around this tree and collecting where branches fell off, I got a good bit of resin. Now you'll see that it's all dirty and mucky. It's got some bark and dirt and everything in there. That's okay, because the next step in our process is to process this and purify it into pure resin. And we're going to get going on that, and we're going to make some pine resin sticks out of this to have pine resin ready for us in the future. Okay, so we got ourselves set up here. What we got? I got my stove here, and I got my cooking can, one I'm just using for pine sap, filled with water, and then I also went ahead and found myself 2 sticks, clean off the end, shade out the bark, and we're going to use this to actually collect up our pine sap and make pine sticks, our pine resin sticks. So we're going to go ahead and get our water boiling here. Now you can do this on a fire too. There's a couple primitive means of doing this. You can cook this on a fire if you have a can. Just boil your water in the fire. Another way you can also do this, an actual primitive method of doing it, the way Native Americans did it, was they would cook up their fire and take a flat rock, and they would lean that flat rock up along a fire. So when they put the pine resin on, that pine resin would melt and then drain and drip down off that rock onto another rock. They would have another rock sitting right underneath it. Then it could cool and harden right there in the lump, and that's how they would collect up their pine sap. But just for the ease of getting this done for this video, we're going to go ahead and use the stove here. It will not take long at all for this to boil. Now the way this works is when I go ahead and put all this pine resin with all these impurities, it's got pine needles, bark, dirt, and whatnot. When I put this in here, the pine resin actually is lighter than the water, so as it boils, the pine resin is going to actually stay on the top, and all the impurities will boil down to the bottom, away from the pine resin. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take our pine sticks, and we're just going to stir and collect up that pine resin. Almost like making a candle. Like this is your wick. If you're ever made a homemade candle, you dip the wick in there, pull it out, let it harden, dip some more in there, and pull that out, and it'll keep on building up. Now you're going to get some impurities on it, but that's fine. You could always just pick it up with your fingers or use a stick to clean that off. Our water's starting to boil here. We're going to go ahead and place some of this pine sap in there. We're going to give that some time to boil, maybe about 5-10 minutes, and let that boil, and we'll be back and show you what we're going to do next. What you can see here as it's boiling, what you see here on the top is the pine resin floating to the top. Now there are some impurities, but over time that's going to start boiling down. You can even see as I'm just dipping my stick in there that it's starting to collect some of that pine sap, but we still want this boil a little bit longer just to purify and get that pine sap a little bit more pure. Okay, now we had that boiling for a while, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut that fire off. Now you see all that pine resin that's on the top. I'm going to start with my sticks. Not sticking all the way in the water, just a little bit. Get that stick in there, get some on there, pull it out. Put my next stick in there. Pull some of that pine resin out. You'll see some of the impurities in there. This ain't the purest and cleanest, but it's going to get the job done. I'm just going to alternate back and forth as this cools, collecting up some of that pine sap, that pine resin. Dip it in there, dip it right in some cold water. It'll help harden it on your stick a little quicker. All I'm doing is sticking my stick in there, pulling it out, sticking it into the cold water. And you'll start seeing that this starts to cool down and thicken up into a sticky ball. You're going to get some impurities in there. It's not going to be 100% clean, but you can just pull them out with your finger. That did, just slid right out. Take it, work it on your stick, get yourself a nice even little ball there. You're going to use this stick to store your pine resin. You have your pine resin on this stick, easy accessible. You can throw it in a pack, carry it with you, stick it somewhere in your camp. That way you always have it next or near you and easily accessible. And this is going to harden. It's going to get rock hard when it hardens. But we're going to go ahead, heat the stove back up. Get the rest of it boiling. You're going to do this couple continuous processes. You're going to let it boil. They get separated. They keep melting that pine resin down. Then you're going to turn it off. You're going to take your sticks, dip it in there, and work up your balls on your sticks. So we're going to do this a few times, see how much pine resin we get out of this, and we'll be right back. Okay, off camera, I've went through this process about 3-4 times. And you can see here I got some pretty good, decent-sized balls. And as these cool, they become very pliable, and you can shape them around. When you go to store this, you can either cut this stick off and just save it like that. I'm going to keep it on the sticks because I might cut the handles a little shorter, but that way I can always reuse these sticks to make more pine pitch. As you need to pitch, you just chip it off of here, peel it off here, or melt the whole blob. And you can definitely reuse these sticks to make more pine pitch. And as you see here, I probably got probably the last little bit of pine pitch left in this can here. And like I said, all I'm did, dip the stick in there, roll it around, dip it in the cold water to start cooling it off. Any impurities that you pick up, little pieces of stick, little pieces of pine needles, whatever, you can just pull off as you go. Now, I use a small container. If you got a larger container, you could definitely get this a lot cleaner. As you can see, there's still some impurities in there, but that's fine. It's not going to be 100% perfect anytime you do this. Alright, as you can see here, I got my finished pine pitch sticks. They're hardening up, they're getting pretty solid. As I stated earlier, there are a little bit of imperfections, a little bit of dirt in here, but a lot of that's because I use such a small container. If you use a larger container, it's not going to be as dirty, but that doesn't matter. That's going to add a little bit to the strength, I believe, of the pitch. These balls, as you can hear me clinking together, are going to get pretty hard. They're going to get pretty solid as they harden up. What we made here today is pretty much nature's epoxy. This is primitive epoxy. As long as man has been around, they've been using pine sap for many things. Definitely for securing. Definitely as a Mother Nature's glue, Mother Nature's epoxy. For if you want to seal up or bind arrowheads or any kind of cordage, anything you tie up, any kind of tools, even to make repairs. You can use this. Like I said, you made it, you purified it. It's one of these sticks. You can take it, chunk it off, remelt it as is on a rock in a fire or something like that, or on a pan. Then you take that melted pine pitch and just with a stick, you just take it and brush it on whatever it is you want to seal up, and it makes a great hard glue. So I hope you enjoy what you see. I hope you go out in the woods, find yourself some pine sap, try this method out, perfect it, practice it, and test it out and use it to make things. I hope you like what you saw. I hope you learned something. I'm Sergeant speaking with Earthwalker Primitives. Thank you.